Jillian Helen Norbury, and this is Becoming Unapologetically Me, the show all about authentic self-expression with expert guests from the fields of health, leadership, and mindset. This show is here to show you that you don't need to conform to the expectations that friends, family, and society have of you, and actually what we can unearth when we find the courage to become the unapologetic version of who we are. Grab a cup of coffee and get your notepad out for this week's episode. Hello, and welcome back to Becoming Unapologetically Me. Today, I'm really excited to be speaking to former binge eater turned trauma certified life coach, Jillian Scott. I know the topic of our relationship with food is complex, particularly for women, so I'm really excited to jump into this with Jillian today. So, Jillian, can you take us back to what life was like for you growing up with a narcissistic parent and how that shaped your sense of identity and self-worth?
Yeah, and this is something I've really been exploring more over the last even just couple years. And so thank you so much for having me on and just giving this space to be able to talk about these things, because what I've also realized is this is way more common than we realize. When I grew up thinking, I just don't get along with my dad. We just have a tough relationship. But I always felt like he never liked me. And my entire childhood, I never liked him. And I never could understand why. It wasn't like he said no to buying me a Barbie one time, or there was like a specific incident. It was, I just never liked him. And what was really at play was it didn't feel safe. I didn't feel emotionally safe in my nervous system, because even from the time I was really young, he would rage. Like there would be these big outbursts of anger out of nowhere. And it's terrifying. Even as an adult, raising their voice or just getting louder can be scary for kids. Now you've got somebody who's maybe kicking boxes or throwing stuffed animals or like never hurting me physically. But it was near me. It was around me. And so it really set me on guard. And it seemed like he was mean. He was angry a lot. And then there were also, what I can look back and see is there were also passive aggressive comments. There were snarky comments towards young kids. And I have two younger half sisters. I grew up with them. So it's like, we are just sisters. There's an 8, 5, and then 2-year-old, for example. And to have these really like harsh words for these really young girls, I look back and I just think that is not the example of a loving father that I would have hoped for or that I wanted. I learned how to please. I learned how to appease. I learned how to try to say the right thing, walk on eggshells. It was always don't wake the beast. Like, what do you need to say or not say or do or not do in order to try to make dad happy or make sure he stays happy? You start to preemptively do it of how do I make sure that we don't even get to the point where these outbursts come. So it's that preemptive and learning, if I can be perfect, if I can show up in just this way, then I can create this result. Or then I can feel safe. I can feel calm. And a lot of it was also like learning to stuff down emotions. With most narcissists, only certain emotions are allowed, and they're only allowed when they deem it. You're not allowed to be angry. You're not allowed to be stressed. You aren't allowed to be frustrated, all of these things. And so it was this subtle stuffing down. And that's what I saw my mom do. And so I think on a really subconscious level, it was like you model and you mimic what you see around you. And so it's like learning this. So I also learned to be passive aggressive, to be snarky, to give the silent treatment. I was very mindful not to rage and scream and yell, but I would go the opposite end of I will withdraw and I will not hurt you with my lack of presence. But I think there was this sense of punishment that comes with the silent treatment in that aspect.
If you don't say something, you can't say the wrong thing and risk him kicking off a bit.
Yeah. And of course, if as with all narcissistic or abusive dynamics, there are some good times. And I think that's why it's like we also want to hold so much compassion for the people, for like my young self, for my mom who stayed for a long time, because there were good times. And sometimes he was really nice and he was really caring. And sometimes he did comfort us when we were kids. There were times he did try to be a good dad and have some hard conversations with us. But if there was ever an incident or an issue, my mom was often the one to comfort. And so it's like you have this broken trust, broken relationship, and it's not being repaired.
I also believe that as a child, specifically, put your mum to the side for the moment, as a child, you come into this world expecting and knowing, in inverted commas, that your parents are your source of safety. They are your means of survival. So you have to play to that tune because your very survival depends upon it. So it's such a big risk to go, no, you're not going to have anything to do with it. Apart from the fact that you hang on for the good times, but actually you need your parents because you're only a little baby. How can you survive without them?
I didn't want to make things worse. It's things already aren't good. If I say anything or if I do too much, or what could I say that could just make this even worse, even harder. And so, and I think about it as emotional toddlers. And you have just these generational trauma that gets passed down. It's that learned behavior, learned coping mechanisms, but it is really just, it was his trauma that he couldn't deal with. His emotional unavailability, his unwillingness to handle and be able to look at his shame. And so it just keeps getting cycled down and cycled down. And it's like this game of hot potato, right? Where it's like he feels the shame and he wants to throw it. And he doesn't care who he throws it to, but he's got to get rid of it. And it's, again, like so subconscious. I don't think he was ever trying to hurt me or my sisters or even my mom, but that's how it comes out, right? We have to look at the impact, not just the intention.
For sure. So then you found yourself in a narcissistic marriage. So how did that continue to affect your ability to express your authentic self?
Yeah. So as I was thinking about this, because I hear a lot of women talking about how they lost themselves in a marriage. They had themselves and then they lost it. And as I was thinking back, I was like, I don't think I had ever really found myself. I went from a family of origin to college, back to living with my family of origin for 2 years, then getting married and living with my ex-husband. And I think I lost myself in like 8th grade. Like I think I had my authentic self there. Then we moved overseas. I went to 5 high schools in total. So there was a lot of, who do I need to be to fit in? Who do you want me to be? I'll be her. And a lot of it is really wanting to make friends, wanting to have a high school experience, wanting to have fun. And so it really, but it impacted how I saw myself. And I would say one of the core aspects is like shame and then self-disbelief, like self-doubt. And I think self-doubt is where we can get really caught up in not being fully expressing our true self and who we are, because we doubt that we'll be loved. We doubt that it's good enough. We doubt other people are going to find it fun or they're going to like us. We are such a communal people. And as humans, we like others, whether it's a small group or a lot. Like we want to be in community with other people. We don't want to be cast out of the tribe because that equals death typically in the past. And so a lot of it was, I think, tampered down. And it really was this learned, okay, who do I need to be in this situation to make him happy? Who do I need to be so that he doesn't leave me? There was a lot of thoughts around he chose me and I am special, but part of how I'm special is that he chose me. So if he doesn't choose me, if he walks away, now I'm nothing. A lot of my worth was still wrapped up in him. So it very much had to be, how do I make him happy? How do I make sure he doesn't leave? Because that would trigger abandonment. It would trigger shame. It would trigger all of these aspects. And so there were parts that I could show at times, but a lot of it was feeling less than. My ex would want me to wear like a skimpy bikini, and I didn't feel comfortable in that. But it was like this pressure, and you should want to do this for me because it doesn't matter what you think. It matters what I think. And just all of these different messages. And for somebody who's used to that, it's that, okay, like, I guess this is what I have to do.
So what were the first signs that you'd lost your voice or your power? And how did you start to get it back?
Yeah. So I would say my business was a big piece. It created a lot of tension in the marriage, which is really unfortunate. And I wanted a cheerleader in him. I wanted him to support me. And so while he was paying bills and supporting us financially, I didn't feel like I had the emotional, mental support, especially if things were hard or challenging. He wasn't like, you can do this. You've got this. Let's figure this out. it was, maybe you should quit. Like, yep, it's hard. Like, you should probably stop. Maybe you should start a nail salon. Like, people will pay for nails. They don't pay for coaching. And so it was one of those things where like, I had to fight for this dream and this desire and not feeling like a bad person or not feeling like a bad mom, just because I also wanted to have a business or because I wanted to do something outside of the home. And I think from how I grew up, there was also this sense of, I need to be able to make my own money, because if I need to leave, I need to be able to support myself. And so there were some subtle undertones where I think even like without fully realizing it, there was this level of knowing of, if things are bad enough, if they don't get better, I need to be able to support myself. So it's like, it wasn't safe to just be a stay-at-home mom because, am I just going to trap myself? But bringing up like feeling like I couldn't share wins, I couldn't share challenges, I couldn't share how I was really feeling. Even to say that I was feeling stressed, I would get pushback. Stressed? You had a babysitter for 3 hours today. Like, why are you stressed? You should want to be with your child all the time. So it was a lot of what I would say is gaslighting, not allowing me to have a human experience. And it wasn't that I'm always stressed. Like, I'm typically a very happy, very positive person, but being able to just allow myself to experience certain things or just notice, like, I'm just having a moment and I just need a hug. Like, I don't need you to try to fill me up. I don't need you to try to initiate sex. I just need you to give me a hug and be like, it's okay. We'll get through this. Do you want to sit down? Can I make dinner for you? There was no like reversal of things. It was just a shame on you. You can't feel that way. So with the emotions, with the business, with some of those things, I realized like I couldn't be fully me. And when I had friends who would say like their spouse, their husband was their best friend. And I was like, yeah, I guess I can't say the same. And I wanted that. I want a spouse who is my best friend, but I didn't have that. And part of my awakening and part of this journey has been making peace and acceptance with that of there were lessons to be learned and there were good lessons, positive things that I learned from him.
So you shared how you struggled with binge eating for 14 years. How did the emotional abuse that you were experiencing play into that relationship with food?
So I think sometimes it was, I feel lonely, so I'm going to turn to food to feel better or food to make this feel better. Sometimes it was, I should be further along. I should be a better wife. I should be a better mom. It was these shoulds, these expectations. And so then it's food now creates that quick hit of dopamine. It's that like fast, reliable, effective sense of relief. And so it's a way just to feel better. Or if he had said maybe a kind of a rude or hurtful comment about my body. Remember, there was one point in particular where I was like, I just want to go get in sweatpants and eat some ice cream. And I told myself in that moment, I'm not getting the ice cream. We are not eating ice cream because we feel bad. We're not eating ice cream because we are hurt because of something he said. So there were ways in which it played. I would say a lot of the emotional eating and binge eating, because it started before I got married. It was probably from the time of I was around 18 through my early 30s. And it was up and down, off and on. There were heavier periods and lighter periods. And there were times when I probably wasn't really binging at all, but it was just this constant going back to emotional soothing. And when you don't know how to process and allow your emotions, when you're told they're bad, they're wrong, they're not allowed, we need something to try to re-regulate our nervous system, to re-regulate our emotional state. And so food was often the choice. It was that quick and easy fix. And so that was the long-term thing of like, sometimes it was the relationship. Sometimes it was just not meeting my own expectations. I felt like a failure. And sometimes the binging came from just the chronic dieting and thinking I had to lose weight and be a certain size and a certain shape. And it was not feeling at peace and ease just with who I am and my body. And I'm trying to find that balance between, okay, I don't have to look like a Victoria's Secret supermodel. I don't have to look like the cover of Shape magazine, and also finding my own strength and beauty and how I do look and recognizing if I do want to lose weight, that's not a problem, but let's not do it in a way that is punishment. That's self-loathing. That's I'm going to try to shame myself skinny. That's not helpful. And so I think the way we typically think about weight loss and we go through the process and the journey of weight loss ends up being really punitive. And so, and it's a fine line, right? I don't think anyone's bad or wrong if they want to lose weight, but we want to look at why and understand why. And we want to look at how are they doing it? What do they think is on the other side?
Yeah. For sure. And very much in my personal journey, I've had times when I've lost weight through those punitive measures. And I've had times more now when I lose weight in a really healthy and managed and a way that feels really good. Like I don't even recognize that I'm losing weight. It's just all much more balanced. So many women use food or alcohol to soothe pain. And, going back to your story, in and of itself, eating ice cream is not a bad thing. So how do we recognize when comfort turns into coping and it's got a sort of a negative undertone with it?
Yeah. And then this is where we just have to be more mindful and really look at the intention, right? So is the intention, I feel bad about myself, or I feel bad about what's happening, or I feel frustrated or stuck or helpless, and so I'm turning to food? One of the questions that I will always give people is to ask yourself, am I hungry? That's a really great starting point, because sometimes we're emotionally eating and we are truly physically hungry. Probably 80% of the time, 80 to 90%, we're not hungry. We're not physically hungry. We might be emotionally hungry. And this is why, so my podcast is called Hungry for Love, because usually it's not that we are hungry for food. We are hungry and starved for love and affection and attention and praise and feeling like we have value and meaning. And so often we are looking for someone else to do for us what they don't know how to do, they can't do, and what we don't know how to do for ourselves. And so the more that we can tune into that, it's that awareness of, am I hungry? Nope. All right. So I'm going to leave the kitchen. And there are going to be times when it's like, all right, am I hungry? Nope. And I'm still going to eat this food, but let's stop lying to ourselves. Let's stop living in denial. And that's going to feel scary. It's going to feel hard.
That was a massive shift for me as well. I have to say that I recognize this pattern that I wouldn't be hungry during the daytime so much in the week.
Yeah.
And then I get to the weekend and I'm like, all I want to do is eat. What's going on here? And I recognized it was because I wasn't doing so much work. And when I was working, I was in my happy place and I was feeling fulfilled by the work that I was doing. And then I stepped out of that and I was like, there's something, a hole to fill. And I'm like, but it's not a food hole, is it?
Right.
And recognizing that was such a big shift for me.
Yes. And looking at core cravings, right? So I think we can have cravings for different foods, but we have core cravings that have not been met yet. And I think this is why the weight loss industry, it's on one hand, I want to believe good things in them. And at the other time, I'm just like, they just brainwash us into focusing so much on food and really exercise. And it really is such an emotional and like a psychological aspect that we need to heal and we need to change. What I noticed for myself was I had a very toxic relationship with food, just like I had toxic relationships with other people. I've had dysfunctional work environments, dysfunctional marriages, dysfunctional parents. And then, of course, it's natural then that I would have this really dysfunctional relationship with food. And so it's really being able to see the cycle, to see the pattern. And we can't see it until we let go of shame, right? So it's like so many of these pieces are so interconnected. And when I could finally admit and say, hi, I'm Jillian. I was a binge eater. I am an emotional eater. Just kind of even reminding clients of like once or twice a month, I might still overeat a little bit. I might still emotionally eat, but I catch it and it's so much smaller and it's not every day like it used to be. There's so much progress, but it is something where like my brain for a long time, potentially forever, is always going to offer me food will make you feel better. Chocolate will make you feel better.
Yeah, mine likes to do that too. You've moved around the world. We touched on this a little earlier. Moved around the world a lot since you were 15. So how did that constant change impact your sense of identity and feed the need to people please as well?
Yeah. And this is something that I didn't realize. I guess I blamed the moving without also realizing that pattern was always there. It just came out more because of the moving and constantly changing. From the time I was 15 up until I'm about to turn 40. So I've lived now in Alabama for 2.5 years. This is the longest I've lived anywhere since I was 15. Wow. So I was moving states or countries every 1 to 2 years. And that was, it's like there were pros and there were cons. And some of the challenges of it were having to pick up, and you're moving a completely new state, sometimes clear across the country, clear across the world. You're meeting new people. So a lot of times it's setting up its new job, new house, finding new friends, new places to do hobbies, to work out, to have fun. And while there was some fun in that, and it was exciting to go to new cities and try new restaurants and explore and an adventure, it also was a little bit lonely because it was realizing also that there were friends that I was friends with more so out of proximity. And we weren't like real close, deep friends. It was like when somebody moved, it was like, okay, now we're not friends almost. And so, a year's how much time you need to start building a friendship. And then when now it's time to move again, it became really tricky. And so a lot of it then was, okay, who do I need to be to fit in? Who do I need to be in order to make friends? Or even for a while, it was like, okay, how do I get a boyfriend? How do I get the boys to like me? Because there was this sense of a validation if I got attention or that if a boy liked me, especially if it was like high school into college, things like that. There was a lot of my worth and validation that came from a man finding me interesting or thinking that I was special. It's finding kind of those undercurrents. But it came out then as, okay, I wanted to be me. And I think at times maybe the real me came out or at certain situations, but it also was very much, who do I need to be to fit in? And so the hard side, on the positive side, it did make it, I think, a little bit easier as I was building my coaching business, because when I moved across the country, they didn't know me as Jillian who worked as a marketing exec. They didn't know me as the Jillian previously who was a nanny. They knew me as Jillian, the health coach. And so there were some benefits. I could redefine, I could reestablish my identity. And there are some core traits that I would say have been there the whole time. But it is something that I think I kind of maybe take it for granted a little bit because I've done it so much that it's really hard on people to do that much. And so, it was quite the journey. But again, helping me to really refine, who do I want to be now? Not who do I need to be? Who do they want me to be? But who am I? What do I want to lean into? And can I now look at my shadow sides? Can I now look at the aspects and the pieces of me that I maybe don't love or don't like or don't want to embrace, and look at how can I incorporate those more and lean in and actually heal that.
So what did that fitting in cost you personally? And how did you finally decide to stop morphing for other people and just go, no, this is me and I'm proud to be me?
One of the things that I like about magnets is that in order to attract, you also have to simultaneously repel. And I think this was something where it was I kept wanting to attract without wanting to repel anybody. I want everybody to like me. I want all the men to think I'm attractive. I want, right? Not that I needed to date all of them or that was even possible, but it was I need all the people to like me, to want me, to desire me. And really a lot of that was learning how to heal core wounds. So it was recognizing growing up without my biological dad and the abandonment wounds that came from that, having a very passive aggressive, narcissistic stepdad who I grew up with as dad, having this kind of some unmet needs there in terms of a father figure, and looking at how then I would turn to other people to meet that for me. And so this really, it became more of I'm going to start working with a therapist and a coach, and I'm going to really start to explore more of what's happening under the surface. Because I think ultimately, it was costing me. It was costing me a lot. And by me not backing down, by me deciding I am going to stand up for who I am and what I want, that ended up costing me my marriage. And that was a price that I was willing to pay, because I also knew that this was not a healthy, functioning relationship. And if I did want to stay, I would have to tamp down who I was. And I would I would have to morph even more so. And I'd say why we had so much conflict towards the end was because I stopped morphing and I stopped playing that role. And I really looked at, no, this is not healthy. This is not normal. Or this is really confusing. Why are you telling me after 9 years of marriage that you want 6 kids? I'm old for 6 kids right now. I don't know what to tell you. So it was being willing to tell the truth, being willing to tell myself the truth, and being willing to hold that as being valid and okay in myself. And I can be me. And it's that willingness to be rejected, that willingness to feel misunderstood, the willingness to feel not wanted, to feel abandoned. There's been a lot of growth, I would say, in the last 3 years. It's been end of the marriage, plus the last 2 years post-divorce. And also not just blaming my ex either, and noting, like reminding myself, like these were much deeper patterns. They were established well before he was in the picture. It just poked at the things a little bit more.
So how does that trauma and emotional abuse continue to affect someone's body image and behavior, even years later, like after all the therapy and the coaching? How does it still show up?
Yes. So I would say there's a few core wounds. I classify it as 4 core wounds of narcissistic abuse. So you have abandonment is often a big one. Shame. Shame is often a big one that comes then with food, with binging, with emotional eating. We feel a lot of shame, a lot of regret. There's powerlessness. A lot of times we feel powerless around food. We feel powerless around cravings and to stop. And then there's self-doubt. And they're all really impactful. But self-doubt is one of those things that really creeps in. And it is that subtle undercurrent of you might have some hope or some excitement, or maybe this will work. Maybe this could help. And then you tamp it down. And we are so used to like playing small, tamping down ourselves, our own voices, trying to not wake the beast so that somebody else could feel bigger. And sometimes they would have those snarky comments or rude comments, putting you down so that they could feel bigger, so they could feel better. And it's really breaking out of that. And so we have to notice, like, what am I thinking? What am I telling myself? And is that really true? Is this really something I want to keep believing? And so there's a lot of mindset work that I do with clients, but there's also like some somatic nervous system work that we have to do when we feel triggered and activated, when we feel dysregulated, because all of these pieces will play into why we're reaching for food to feel better, right? We can binge for emotional reasons, or maybe from past trauma. Maybe we start binging, but then it triggers the shame. So we keep binging, we keep eating. Then the next day, sometimes we binge because it's like punishment. Yeah. So there's so many different dynamics that play out. But I would say if we're overweight, there's often shame. If we are eating the unhealthy foods and we want to be losing weight, there's shame. Yeah. So it's really like unwinding this giant knotted ball of yarn and really starting to pull through, like, what are my beliefs about this, about food, about weight loss, about what's possible. And it's like holding space to be able to look at what's happened, to really evaluate and learn from past experiences versus that was bad. You did a bad thing. Shame on you. We just need to like push it down. Don't look at it. And we'll just look over here and we'll just try harder. So yeah, that's often what gets triggered.
So what would one thing be or the first thing be that you'd want women to understand about rebuilding self-trust and self-belief after emotional trauma?
Yeah. So self-trust, I think this is a huge one, right? Because it plays into the self-belief of like, if I trust myself, I can believe in myself to do new things. It's a muscle though. And this is a muscle it's like right now, completely atrophied. You've not really used it much at all. Other people have told you what you're good at, what you can do, what you can feel, and we have just gone along with it. And so now we are learning to trust our emotions. We're learning to trust our body. I can trust when I'm hungry and when I've had enough food. So even from that weight loss perspective, if there was a thought of, I can't trust myself around food. I can't trust myself to eat a little bit and be satisfied. I can't trust that my body knows how to process carbs. I thought I was just this person that was like, oh, I could never eat carbs. But it was just a story that I had for a long time, and my brain found evidence for it. But actually it was like, oh no, I can do carbs. I was binging. That's why I wasn't losing weight.
Not all the carbs.
Right? Yeah, not all the things. So it's a process, but it starts one step at a time. So if you think about it as it's a muscle that we need to build, we need to flex, we first want to look for evidence. How can I trust myself? Where did I have some intuition or some nudges that I didn't follow? And can I have a lot of love and compassion for myself back there and start to recognize, oh, I did have some intuition there. Where did we have some inklings that we did start to follow, some of those nudges where we did start to follow them? And maybe we backed off. We didn't follow them all the way, but really starting to know, yes, I can trust myself. Yes, that was a red flag. Yes, I did know better than what this person told me to do. And so it really does go into this deeper conviction of, I believe in me, I trust myself. And I trust myself to figure it out when curveballs come up, when I create results that I don't necessarily want. a lot of it is that self-ownership too, but it's this belief and this conviction of, I will figure this out. Doesn't matter how long it takes or what the process looks like. There's a message in it. And the more that we can understand the message and what this is trying to teach you, like what the overeating, the binging, the narky relationship, like what is it there to teach you? Yeah. Because when we can find, that's when we can create more healing, more growth, more of what we do want.
For sure. So what does your life look and feel like now compared to that version of yourself who was still stuck in those cycles of self-abandonment?
Yes, it's a little scary sometimes, right? Of, ooh, this is my real message. This is what I want to say. It does get a little nerve-wracking at times, and it's holding space for that. But it's freeing. It's amazing to have my own space. And when I am there have been little things with my ex since the divorce where I'll pick up on the silent treatment. He didn't like the way I was coaching my son's soccer team. They're 4. Okay. Like they're 3 sets of expectations, but he didn't like how I was handling that. And so I was getting the silent treatment. And I was just like, this is so great that now on Saturday afternoon, I can take our little guy back to my house. And I can't remember what we did that day, but it was just like, I'm so glad that I am not in that dynamic, that I don't have to keep living like that because that was terrible. So in many ways, it's like emotionally been better. It's been freer. In some ways, it's still a little scary because there are things about my message where I'm like, oh, it's going to ruffle some feathers. Oh, people aren't going to like me. I'm going to be misunderstood. I'm going to be judged. I will likely be rejected. It's like really holding space for all of that and knowing like this is the 50-50 of life. I don't need everything all the time to be sunshine and rainbows and unicorns because that just sets myself up to be disappointed. So it's like embracing and like knowing and really focusing on what can I control.
And nor do you need everybody to, like you were saying earlier, about you don't need every man to want to date you.
I get so overwhelming. I haven't been on dating apps in a while, but I was on Bumble for a little bit after the divorce. And like it's overwhelming.
So what does being unapologetically you mean to you today? And how do you continue to embody that in your life and your business?
Yeah, so that looks like really like allowing myself to what I like, to want to go for a walk every day, to enjoy hot yoga and really making that a priority. Like I go to a class on Monday nights and that there are hard boundaries around that. I've been asked to do things for other people, to sub other classes. And I tell everybody, no, like this is my me time. So it's prioritizing this, prioritizing because it is like a mental as well as a physical health kind of thing. But it's really allowing myself to start to say what I really think, to share my experience and to know that it's not wrong just because somebody doesn't agree with it, because somebody had a different experience and to allow it even to look at how can I make things work without constantly trying to just please the other person. So I think I'm really great at finding compromises, but it's also not at the expense of me. So it's, oh, I would love to go to this event Saturday, but Sunday morning I have church and I need to make sure that I'm at church at 10:30, something like that, right? Where it's like, here's what I really want to do on the weekend. And I would love to also do this with you at this time. It's being willing to see where the people pleasing still comes up because it's such an ingrained habit. It came up a couple weekends ago with my mom coming to visit. Didn't even realize that I was doing it until I was processing after with my therapist. And I was like, oh, it didn't even cross my mind to offer her to come a different weekend. My thought was, I just need to accommodate this. And I didn't realize how much I was bending over backwards trying to accommodate it.
And I think it's interesting, isn't it, where most of those old traits show up with the people who've been in our lives a long time, the kind of default into that old pattern, because that's the way that we always were with that person. And it's much harder, I think, with people, family or friends who have been in our life for a long time to break out of those patterns with those people. Whereas with newer friends, it's maybe a little easier.
But yeah, it's like holding space for all of that and just knowing I'm not bad or wrong. I can learn from this. I can be more aware of it. And this is it's like the more that we can look at it that way and hold it loosely and not so tightly, like the more that we can truly learn instead of just beating ourselves up and feeling, oh my gosh, I'm doing the same thing over again. I'll never figure this out. I'll never break out. It's like we've got to let go of that really harsh tone And that's when we can move forward much faster.
Oh, thank you so much, Jillian. I've so enjoyed this conversation. And thank you for shining a light onto this conversation so that all of the people who are currently going through what you went through, what I went through, which so many of us have been through at different times, for those people who are currently in the middle of it can see that they're not alone and that there's hope for coming out of the other side of that. So thank you so much for bringing all of that light and that hope and that perspective to your experiences and the experiences that so many other people share. So thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for having me on and for having this platform, really just to help encourage women to really embrace more of who they are and to do it in that unapologetic way, which is going to feel scary at times, but it's like there's also safety in numbers, right? It's like the more that we all do this, the more that we all feel comfortable and know that we're not alone, I think the more encouraging it is for others.
For sure. Thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode of Becoming Unapologetically Me. Make sure you subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your podcasts so you never miss an episode.